Joining us for another edition of Heart to Heart. We will be discussing owning your power today with Tony Fonte. I am your host, Dr. E. I'm actually a self care coach helping women get over their ex and back to smiling again. And owning your power is so critical, particularly in relationships and in relationship with yourself. And that's what I really am huge on. I went through my own self-care and self-love journey, and I had to, and I'm going to use Tony's word here, I had to reignite my own power because I had lost it. I had lost it in my childhood through abandonment, through rejection, through when my parents broke up, all of these different things. I needed to regain my power. I didn't even know my power. I didn't know any of those things, and I had to get it back. Have you felt that way? Have you felt like you lost your power? Do you even know your power? Because some, hey Miranda, hey Metzley again. And I can tell it's doing the same thing because normally it would just, I hear you, Tony.
Here I am. Did you
I
see
hear
me?
you.
Look at that.
I hear you, but I can't see you, but that's
You
okay.
can't see me?
No, I can't see you. I think everybody, if y'all can see both me and Tony, give us a thumbs up in the comments or just say yes, because
I,
I can hear him.
okay.
So,
Yeah,
okay. Can
I
you
can see me.
see, can you see, okay, can you see me as well, Metzley? Can you see both me and Tony? I just want to make sure because that's what's been going on. But either way, we gonna do this interview. How are you
I,
today?
I am great. How are you?
Awesome. Pretty good. Pretty good. It's warm here in Georgia. How is it
It,
there?
well, it's a little chilly today. And I say chilly
Really?
because it's gotten down to like 75-ish.
Oh,
Actually,
yeah.
we actually had the lows into the 59. I was like, woo, it's getting a little chilly, but I'm
I
still running.
know. Well, it's pushing to fall, but it's not quite there yet. So let's start off this powerful conversation here because that's what we're going to talk about is power. When you
Right.
hear the word power, what comes to mind for you?
Well, first thing that comes to mind when you say power is owning your life, but it's really owning yourself. Um, and that's something I've been on the journey. Like you were talking on the first try of your life. It's like remembering who you are. It's really what it is, and being able to show up and stand up in that power and understanding who you are. Because you said something in the last one. It's like trying to figure out who we are, and sometimes we try. Sometimes we're. How'd you say it? Sometimes we try to be something that we're not, and it can get pretty messy. And I'm like, most of the time, I
Hmm.
think we are because we're not. We're always trying to, and it's all unconscious that we're trying to be what we think, and that's the key word. We're being what we think others want us to be, and there's many different facets to go in. It's like, okay, with our partner, with our kids, with our job, our careers, our business, and hustle and grind, the whole mentality there, and all these different things. It's like I got to have this thing, I got to have that, and it's like, what the hell do you really want?
Yeah.
Who the hell are you really? And it goes back to childhood. I don't care if you had a really great childhood or not. Most people that I've worked with that they're like, oh, I've had a great childhood. And I'm like, well, something's going on that either you perceived it
I
that way,
know. I know.
for you to back off into like a few weeks into working. And I'm like, remember when you said you had a good childhood? And they're like, fuck you, in a loving way. But
I know.
because it's perception too. It's perception of what we perceive to be true. Like I had a pretty volatile growing up, especially growing up with a dad who's an Italian dad, and then that whole generational stuff. It's all these generational patterns are passed on to us, and then when they do certain things, when our parents do certain things off their condition, off their beliefs, what they believe to be true, and how they're showing up, and their disconnect with how they're showing up and how they really want to show up, but they have no clue because they haven't done the work and haven't done this
Mm.
thing. And then here come the cycle breakers like us saying, no, we're done. This is it. Which when we say we're going to cycle breakers, then we're like, okay, when it happens, then we're like, we had no idea that we were going to be going through all this heavy stuff. And it's not just our own. We're taking on generational stuff to heal the generations past, ours, and moving forward. And I'm getting chills as I say that. And I've been on this journey, because you said since 2015 for your journey, right? Of remembering what, and
Yeah, specifically, yeah, yeah.
it's been recently that I really understand. It's like, oh, I don't know who the hell I am. I've been showing parts of me, but really remembering who I am and then being that. Like my identity's been in relationships. My identity's been in my daughter, especially since my wife passed away in 2011. And you think that would start my journey? It didn't. It took me a few years after to really start going, okay, I need to own it. Because for me, my journey started when I just wanted to overcome anger. I was so angry. It's what I grew up in. You know, Italians have bad tempers, and that's just bullshit. It's just it's just the pain and stuff that we're holding on to, and the conditioning that we're holding on to. But it was anger was my biggest thing that I wanted to overcome, and I've tried what I thought was everything to overcome anger. And then at the time, I was in the church, and I had two separate pastors tell me, it's like, well, you know, you may be angry your whole life, but just keep giving it to God, and you know, He'll give you strength. And I remember sitting there one day just feeling defeated. I'm like, my last resort, and I'm being told that I may be angry my whole life, the rest of my life.
Wow.
And sorry. And I was like, because not everybody understood this because I didn't show it. So I was mentally abusive, emotionally abusive to my daughter, and then at times physically abusive at the time. And I hated it. I hated it, but I couldn't fucking stop it. It was like I would have these moments. You didn't know what side of me you were going to get. You were either get this funny, loving guy, which I'm a funny dude, or you would get to someone that would just get triggered and set off. And it would be the stupidest things. But I was also taught that growing up. And I did a lot of work with the therapy, all of this. I mean, I've done a lot of stuff trying to remember who I am, reclaiming my power, standing in that power. And I would have moments of it, but it was never consistent. And I see this a lot of times. There's some consistency, and then people fall back, and it seems like they're stuck in this perpetual loop,
Mm-hmm.
no matter what they do. And I'm sure you working with people, helping them overcome their exes and stand in their power to really invite that person in. And I was just like this inner battle. Tony, don't get angry today. Don't get angry today. And then I would get angry, and then I would beat myself up. And I had this shame and this guilt, and it gets me still today. Whew. And then one day I was sitting here after all that happened, and I remember going, why would God want me to suffer?
Mm.
And then I went, why would God want my daughter to suffer? It makes no sense to me. And I heard this little voice, and it says, Tony, my daughter's name is Kylie. It says, Kylie's going to choose a guy like you. So meet a guy and choose a guy like you someday and marry him. If she were to choose today, would you be happy with that choice?
Now that's a good question.
Yes. And I immediately said, oh, hell no, I'd kill him. And then that voice says, she's watching you. You have work to do. And I went, but I've tried everything. And I hear, try again. And it gets me emotional. And it's at that moment that I drew my line in the sand. And when you draw your line in the sand, it doesn't matter what area of your life you're in. It can be in relationships, wanting healthy relationships. It can be money. It can be lifestyle. It can be being the best partner you can be. It can be the best dad you can be, mother you can be. For me, at the time, it was, I'm going to become the best man and dad I could possibly be, or I'm going to die trying. I'm going to overcome anger, or I'm going to die trying. That was my drawing a line in the sand, and I started diving into everything on overcoming anger. I mean, everything. And started out at this Christian standpoint and just
Right.
learning different things, and that took me down the rabbit hole of where I am to I had my first spiritual awakening in 2019 is when it started. I mean, the rapid healing started. And everything, all my beliefs, the Christian beliefs started unraveling, and I started experiencing different things and questioning things. And I was like, oh my God. And I started going deeper and deeper and deeper into the rabbit hole. And I was like, oh my God, this is where it's coming from. And I remember I got to tell this story because I love telling this story. So it was around that same time, because that was 2014, the end of 2014 when that started. And I said, I drew my line in the sand. And my dad has triple bypass surgery. He had 5 heart attacks, didn't even know it. In 2013, when my mom passed away, my brother had a major heart attack at 41, died 3 times, came back, all that stuff. And he's had like 2 more since then. He's good now. Well, good as can be. But
Right.
so we're leaving the hospital after, because my dad went downhill after my mom died. He just went down. And so we're leaving the hospital because my brother doesn't have a filter. We're leaving the hospital, and he says, this is going to happen to you too. And I mean, this is all the time that I said I drew my line in the sand. I mean, it was all around this time frame. This is going to happen to you, meaning I was going to have a heart attack too. And
Right.
I was going to have this stuff. And I said, it's not going to happen to me. And he says, I thought the same thing. I'm like, yeah, but you coming from this pride, super ego, like thinking that you're just invincible. I'm not coming from that standpoint. He says, but Tony, it runs in the family. Heart disease.
Okay, I gotta pause you right there because that's what you talk about, Tony, is undoing this generational stuff. When you heard that statement in the moment from your brother, what was your initial thought? Like, it runs in the family.
Well, and that's where I was getting ready to head to, but I was like, I got really almost angry in a good way,
Yeah.
which I've learned that anger actually is a good thing. But I actually went to the other side of the spectrum, but I'll get to that in a little bit if we get there. I looked at him and I said, do you know, actually what I said was, do you fucking know why it runs in the family? Because we're a bunch of angry fucking assholes. We have no joy.
Mm.
We're living in this pain and just angry. There's no joy running through our veins, or there's no consistent joy running through our veins, or happiness running through our veins, and we don't feel we fucking deserved it. Well, I didn't know this, but I just said it. I'm like, it's because of that. Because we're a bunch of angry assholes. He had this little smirk, like, okay, like it's gonna happen to you. And I said, it's not happening to me. And when I said this, I didn't know it at the time because I was just beginning my journey. I go, it's running out with me. I'm breaking the cycle.
Yes. Yes.
And I said, I'm changing our family tree. And I'm sitting there as these words are coming from my mom, going to myself, I'm like outside of myself going, who the fuck is saying that? What is that? What does that
I
even mean?
know. It's like this person has taken over.
Yeah. I'm like, what is am I possessed? Yes, my higher self's taken over, but I didn't know that yet either. Because I was still in this Christian bubble of things, and I'm not knocking the Christian because it helped me get to where I am. But I was listening to that, and I went, I don't even know what the hell that means. Now I understand what it means because as I'm moving through it, I'm like, oh. And then as I'm working with people, I'm realizing that I'm like, that's who I'm attracting. Well, 2, 1, they're trying to remember who they are. I mean, that's trying to remember their identity, and remembering their identity is reclaiming your power. Every time that
Yes.
we start coming back to ourselves, loving on ourselves, figuring and saying yes to ourselves, and stop people pleasing and saying yes when we really want to say no, because we don't understand how it is when we're trying to prove ourselves in relationships because we want our partner to love us back. And of course we don't know that until we know that. It's just like we're doing these things until we become aware. And that's actually one of the things for me. I was always constantly trying to prove myself in relationships. I got to do these things. I got to do this for her. I got to do this and I got to do that. And it's fucking exhausting. when you're trying to be there
What
when
do
you're
you
anxious.
do? Okay, I gotta ask you because I got to ask the questions. Why do you think you did that and other men? Because I know you help a lot of men overcome these things in relationships. Why did you feel you had to prove yourself and say, I got to do this for her? I got to do all this?
Well, for me, it goes back to childhood, trying to prove to my dad that I was good enough, worthy enough, deserving of love. Because there was I remember I had this conversation before my dad died, but he didn't know the age. He didn't say the age because I heard that stupid voice again. It's not a stupid voice, but I heard that voice, to tell me, go set him free. This was what I heard, and this has happened on a couple occasions. But the first time it was like, go set him free, and I'm like, go set who free? I'm like, everybody listening and watching this right now, they're like, who is this crazy guy hearing voices? We hear voices all the time.
I do too.
It's just, are we choosing to listen to them, and how are we listening to them, and how do we perceive these voices? I mean, there are guides talking to us, or God, higher self, whatever this spaghetti monster in the sky, whatever you resonate, it's your higher self. I mean, whatever it is and whatever resonates with you. But I heard this voice, and it kept saying, go set him free, go set him free. And I'm like, what the heck? And then it's like, go set your dad free. And I was like, go set my dad free? What the hell does that mean? I'm like, can you be a little more clear? Because apparently I'm a little thick and I'm
Yeah,
not
because
getting
you
it.
don't have to be specific.
I'm like, what does that mean? I don't get it. And it says, go tell him thank you for the way he raised you. And I went, oh. And I'm all doing this legit. I'm like, I don't know. My dad and I don't have that relationship, and that's too vulnerable for me. I'm like a vulnerable guy, but yeah, that's too vulnerable. I'm just like, I don't do that. And I'm like, no, nope, nope, no. Well, and then that energy started pushing on me, like set him free, getting louder, louder, till it was pushing where it was heavy. And I'm like, okay, fine. I'll go. I have this conversation, but it ain't gonna be pretty, and you're stupid. I mean, it's just like, I'm like, I'm like, it's not gonna. I'm like, I'm so uncomfortable. I had a lump in my throat. I wanted to throw up. I mean, my palms were sweaty. I mean, I was. Now I sound like an Eminem song.
Preach, I just thought of that. I just had
Mob
the same
spaghetti.
thought.
uh, so I went and had this conversation. Went out to my dad lived at the time 30 minutes from me. So I'm like, okay, I'm telling my daughter, I'm like, okay, well, my dad needed, because he actually called me and said, hey, can you go shopping for me? And I was like, all right. And I was like, well, here we go. It's the perfect opportunity. And whoever this thing is talking to me, made this happen. And I'm like, he's an asshole, or it's an asshole. I mean, it's just, but I'm driving out there the whole time. I'm nervous. And my daughter's like, she was, I think, 8 at the time. No, I don't know. She was younger, obviously. And I remember just sitting there driving, and she's like, you okay? And I'm like, mm-mm. And I'm like, I got to have this conversation with Papa, and I'm nervous. Oh, okay.
Wow.
So then I get out there, and I'm like, how am I going to navigate this? And my daughter's like, oh, I'm going to go watch a movie. I'm like, all right. And my dad, immediately as soon as we get there, and my dad's like, all right, I'm going to go out in the garage and smoke a cigar. Okay, perfect timing. I'm like, I'm just going to do this and get it over with, so I can clean this vomit off my sweater, get that spaghetti
Right?
off. So I walk outside, and it's so funny. I walk outside, and I say this really fast. And I said, all right, Dad, I have something to say, and it's going to make us both uncomfortable, but I'm going to say it and get it over with. And he just looked at me like, okay. So I sit down next to him, and I said, thank you. And he says, thank you for what? I said, thank you for the way you raised me. And immediately he goes into defensive mode. I showed you love when you were a kid. And I went, hold on, Dad. This isn't an attack.
Right.
And now the nervousness is really raising up because there's that, oh, now there's confrontation. And I had this issue with confrontation because of that, and just like taking responsibility for my dad, and sometimes my mom's behavior too, because it's like, oh, I got to keep the peace. How often do we try to keep the peace? And then we become people pleasers, and then we become responsible for other people's emotions, and we don't want to have these hard conversations. And every time someone wants to have a conversation, whether it's a partner or a friend, we get this fear inside of us, like, oh, something's wrong, something's bad is going to happen. But each time that you feel through the fear, and you do it anyway, and you have these conversations, guess what you're doing? You're taking your power back, and you're seeing something different. You're seeing something new, and you're creating something new. So I'm having this conversation with my dad, and I said, Dad, this is not what it's about. I said, you don't need to be on the defense. I said, I'm genuinely thanking you. And I said, because of the way you raised me, I'm the man I am today.
Yes.
Because of the way you raised me, I'm the dad I am today. And then I said this, and I was like, oh, shit, you want me to say this? And I said, because of the way you raised me, I know now what not to do. And I
Oh
said,
my.
Thank you. We're good. You can let whatever you're holding on to go. And at the time,
Yeah.
this was like 3 days before my first book was coming out. And he didn't even know it because he's in it. I don't sell that book really anymore because it's really outdated. But that was my first book, sharing the initial part of my story, because that was what I wanted to share at the time. And even if I watched death, like I didn't share like how she actually died because I felt so ashamed. But anyway, I was telling him, and then I heard this voice again saying, ask him if he was showed love as a kid. And I went, that's going really deep. But I'm not going to say no, because I already felt what that's like when I say no to you, whoever you are.
Yeah. You couldn't let that go.
Yes, I'm like, well, we're already here, and I'm already just like wanting to go clean my pants because I got bubble guts and I'm throwing up. I mean, why not?
You got the sweaty palms, everything.
I'm sweating. I'm sweating over here. I mean, it's just like something's going on, and something was going on. So I heard him ask him, and I said, okay. But I said this to myself. I didn't say it out loud like the first time. And I said, all right, I'll ask him. But he ain't going to answer that because that's too vulnerable for him. And there's a key word here that I'm saying. Why men struggle. I should say most men struggle. And I looked at my dad and I said, Dad, were you shown love as a kid? And to my surprise, he immediately said no. And
wow.
I went, huh. And then I said, how about your dad? No. His dad? No. His dad? No. His dad? No. And then he stops me and he says, when the boys got to a certain age, you stop showing them love because that's what men do.
What?
And I didn't know what age that was because that's all he said. But through me doing some spiritual healing and spiritual work, I knew exactly what age it was for me. 7. Age 7 for me.
So that because early at age 7?
Yeah. It happens around, I would say this for most people, if you look at it, between 7 and probably 8 or 9, or maybe even 10, somewhere in that time frame that this transition starts happening, because that's when you start moving towards the adolescence, preteen, and all that other stuff. You're starting to move into that becoming a man kind of thing. But even for the women, because that's even different too, especially the masculine towards the feminine. And when you're unaware of that, right? So even my mom shifted some things, but now that I know what I know, it's like they're living out of their dynamics, right? They're living out what was pushed onto them and what they perceive to be true. But for me, for the longest time, like my brother, and people react differently to how stuff is pulled away. And like for me, it was like when my dad stopped showing me love, because my dad loves kids, like young kids. He was great with kids. He loved like my dog, and he's great with kids. Babies love him. He loves them. Animals love him. But my dad didn't like people. I mean, it just seemed like it was like he related more to animals than babies, and I understand why now. Because he felt like, wow, this is new. First time I'm sharing this because it just came to me. The beauty of channeling messages and having knowings. The wording that's trying to come through. My dad related that because he felt like he lost his child.
That makes so much sense.
Which is really it's the inner child piece, which when we're doing a lot of healing is the inner child. So at the age of 7, I felt, and this is where people struggle, we put all these different masks on you. I mean, you see it every damn day. with everybody, and when they're trying to be something they're not, or they're trying to be what they think, trying to keep up with everybody else. But it's at that moment, it's like, wait a minute, my dad's not showing me the love that I'm used to seeing. My mom's not showing the love that I'm used to seeing. Well, something must be wrong with me. All unconscious, of course, a 7-year-old kid, and as it's going on, something must be wrong with me. I can't be me because I lose love. I lose affection.
Yeah.
I lose attention. All the basic needs, which had nothing to do with me. It had everything to do with them. We don't know that. And this is the generational shit that's passed on and passed on and passed on. So what did I do? What do most people do and not even know that they're doing it? They abandon themselves. They give their power away to their mom, to their dad, to a caretaker, whomever it is. And then that goes on. Then they give their power away to the relationship. And then we start attracting the same relationships that are familiar to the energy that we had as a kid. We don't know it. This is why when you see people going through therapy or any other else, and I'm sure you see this, we attract people who are like our mother or father. Because we're
Totally.
trying to fulfill those things. So I abandon myself. So when we abandon ourselves, we're taking on identities that we think that other people want us to become so that we can get those basic needs. Now we're trying to prove ourselves. And for me, I wanted to prove that I was good enough to love. Because, my dad would throw back at, oftentimes, you'll never amount to shit. Just all this stuff, which is said to him, all said to him, and which was said to his dad and his dad. This is this generational stuff, and everybody has it. Just the dynamics may be a little different, but it's all the same. And how it's said, even when things are, you think there's a good childhood, something is perceived because of how their parents perceived it, right? So I went through school trying to prove that I was fucking good enough. Right? My brother dropped out of school, ended up getting his GED later. I was the first one and the only one, because there's only two of us, that graduated high school. I'm gonna show my dad that I'm not stupid. I'm gonna show my dad that I'm worthy enough, that I'm good enough. And he didn't show up at my graduation. He was fighting with my mom and dad were separated at the time, and they were fighting. And of course, I just pushed it off, right? Gotta be a fucking man. Just answering your question now. Gotta be a fucking man. Fuck him. It's just literally like, fuck him. You don't want to be there? Screw him. I don't need him. Can't feel. Gotta get angry. You can feel, you get angry and be like, whatever, and just block it out. So the men struggle. The reason why men struggle, for one, we're taught that we can't feel. Taught that we can't be vulnerable. Because vulnerability is weakness. Emotion is weakness. That's a feminine thing. Women are emotional, men are logical. That's just fucking stupid. Because
I know. How are we just in this one spectrum? That doesn't make sense to me. Yeah.
And then I debunked that, because it's like, do you get angry? Yeah, that's a fucking emotion. So how are you not emotional? Do you get happy? Well, yeah, that's emotion. Can you give me 1 second here? Sorry. My daughter's cat's being crazy. My daughter's door shut. I was not happy about that.
Gotcha.
Sorry. I heard him like chewing on the carpet, and I was like, nope, or scratching the carpet. I was like, nope, you're not doing that.
Right. We got to put a
stop. He loves to do that when I'm on a call or whatever. He's like, hey, how can I be an asshole and get attention? But I went through my life trying to prove. And then I went into college, because I was the first person in my family to go to college. That was a whole different thing. Like not just to my immediate family, but their family. It went through. I was the first one to go. Started off good, and then all of a sudden, I had this rage coming in my body, and just feeling like I was struggling, and ended up being like severe depression. Where I was battling us. I was starting off great. I was getting A's. I was proving professors wrong, and all this stuff. Straight A's. I was getting it. And then I hit this wall, and things started unraveling. And where I didn't want to show up, I was struggling to show up to school. And ultimately, I ended up getting kicked out of the business school because I failed 2 classes because I just couldn't like follow through. And I
Mm.
remember going to the doctor on campus because it was all included, and I struggled because I was having this rage and I was having these thoughts and listening to these quote unquote voices, which is the shadow side of the voices, which was scary. But I would go into these rages where I would go in, this anger would come out of me and I couldn't control it. And I was fighting. I was abusive to some partners. I mean, it was pretty shitty, but I couldn't control it, and that was the part of me I hated. But this is also how I saw my dad. This is also how I saw my brother. And I'm sitting there for like 20 minutes trying to tell this doctor that I have a problem, and I'm scared. But, but as men, you can't tell that you're scared. You got to be the man. You got to push that down. You can't cry, which I was always an emotional guy, and I learned now from human design that, well, I'm designed that way, and well, come on, all men could cry. Like when my mom died, it's the first time I really saw my dad cry, and
Mm.
I sat there and watched him because I was like, he's human. And then he would get up and walk away because he didn't want us to see because he felt weak, but he wouldn't say that. But I knew it because here I am doing, I'm sitting there starting to do some of this work, and I'm watching this. So I finally tell the doctor that I had this anger issue and all of the stuff that's going on. He goes, huh. And I mean, I was bodybuilding at the time too, and I'm still struggling with all this anger. And I'm like, I don't know what the hell's going on because scientifically, working out is supposed to help release stress and release this stuff. So why
Yeah.
am I still this bad? I mean, it was, crazy. But you see that in a lot of the bodybuilding thing too. It's like people are holding on, these men are holding on to all this shit, but they don't know they're holding on to all this pain and this burden, these burdens. They're holding on to it because it's all stuffed down in the body. And like, yeah, we can block it out with our minds, right? We can like, nope. It don't go away. We can block it out in the mind and act like we forgot it, but it's stored in the body. And people forget that we store stuff in our body, or we don't know that we store stuff in our body. Emotions get stuck and trapped and all the other things, and it's coming up, and then it's connected to the mind, and then we wonder why. I'm like, oh, why I'm triggered over this thing? Why is this thing from years ago that has no relation to it coming up? Because it's an energetic match. And so I tell the
Mm-hmm.
doctor,
Always.
yes, everything's energy, and this is obviously I didn't know this back then, but everything is energy. We know that everything is energy, and emotions are energy, and we can think all we want, how we want things, right? We can put that out there like, okay, consciously I want this type of relationship, I want healthy, I'm done with this type. But if we don't deal with the shit that's stored in the body, stored way down in the subconscious, unconscious, which is also part of the body, we're going to keep repeating that same cycle until we start dealing with it. So we start going within. So I tell the doctor, like, oh my God, he's going to commit me or something. And he looks at me and goes, well, first and foremost, it takes a really strong man to be able to admit that he's got a problem, to admit that he's struggling, to admit that he's suffering. And then he goes, and this is the reason why there's so many serial killers or whatever, and then abusive people or even women, but let's say for men that beat their partner or whatever. It's because they're struggling and they have no outlet. It's not condoning any of that, but he was like, it's the reason because they don't know how to ask for help, because they're taught that weak to ask for help, that vulnerability is weakness. And I was like, huh. And then he tells me, this is what he tells me, puts me on medicine, and they had to change my medicine and up it to I'm on like 3 different medicines at one time. You're probably going to be on medicine your whole life, because you're going to suffer from depression, because somewhere in your family line, depression runs in the family. He goes, because you have a chemical.
Here goes that theme again.
Yeah. Anytime you go to the doctor, when you fill out a damn questionnaire, family history, and I'm just, I'm like, no, because we can turn, it's genetics. Well, if you look at epigenetics, there's not enough research out there now that we can turn genes off and on. And the reason
Exactly.
there's genes is because the same genes are activated, because the same shit's passed on, the same eating patterns, the same whatever, smoking patterns, the same attitude, behavior patterns are even if it's not exactly how your parents are doing it, there's some form of fashion going on until you finally deal with it. So I was on medicine, still struggling, and I was numb to a lot of that. And then through all that, that's when I ended up getting kicked out of the college at that school, and I felt defeated then. And then I was like, no, I'm gonna finish this. I don't know how I'm gonna do it. I don't know if I can get transferred to another school. I don't know what it's gonna be. I'm not letting this depression beat me. I'm not letting it
Right.
win. And it's about a year on, it's still struggling, and I said, I'm done. And then a year later, I transitioned off of it, and I actually ended up quitting cold turkey, and that's not the smartest thing to do, but because it messes with the wiring in your brain, and when you're coming off, and that was weird for a while, but not like maybe a couple weeks, but still. And I was done, so I thought I was doing good. I was doing better. I dealt with some stuff. I started doing some personal development, and then my wife dies unexpectedly.
Wow.
And well, this is several years later, but 2011 is when she died, and my daughter was 5 at the time, and here I am left to raise her, and I was scared. I don't want to fuck it up, and that's a theme that's been coming up, and everything comes in layers, right? As we start doing the work, everything comes in layers. I thought I dealt with that. Well, you got another layer. You go deeper and deeper as you do the work. And the big theme for me is I'm going to fuck it up. I'm going to fuck my relationship up. I'm going to fuck up being my daughter. I mean, it's just all these things. Why try you growing a business? Why try to help? I'm going to fuck it up. Why have money? I'm going to fuck it up. Because I was told as a kid I was going to fuck it up. And I hear my ancestors telling me, you're breaking it. We've all felt that. You came here to break all these cycles. I'm like,
yes.
Why the fuck did I sign up for this? Because you're the chosen one to do this. And I hear that a lot. It's like the chosen one. I said that on a video a couple times. I'm like, chosen one. Like when I'm talking, I'm like, you're the chosen one for your family. Like your ancestors, the ones who are watching this, you're the chosen one. You're the chosen one. You're here to break it. Well, who am I to break these cycles? Well, you're a powerful badass. That's who the hell you are.
And that's exactly who you are. And so Tony, you teach something called Reignite the 4 Ps. Tell us what you got going on, because I know you got masterminds, you got the program. Tell us how people can get the goodness.
So that came. So it's Reignite the 4 Pillars of Power. I had it to 4 Ps, and it's evolves. It's the 4 Pillars of Power, and it's your passion, your power, your personal power. It's your purpose and your playfulness, and that is the big one. But that's my unique gift, is being able to make not only the healing journey fun, because I just naturally just put humor and fun and even telling stories and doing those things. But even the healing journey, I've learned to have a way of making it fun, way of, because it doesn't have to be so heavy. And I'm learning this for myself, because one of the things is like, I can teach it for other people, but for me, in order for me to feel deserving of it, it has to be hard. In order for me to feel deserving of a healthy relationship, it's got to be hard for me to deserve it, which has been passed on, and having to let those beliefs go. It's like, no, it doesn't. Challenging does not equal hard. But so it's the 4 pillars of power. The playfulness is my unique gift. And I often say that when I first started doing some coaching, before I even had my intuitive abilities unlock, energy healing and mediumship, being able to channel messages and it's coming, and being able to feel people's pain and where they're storing it in their body. And my daughter's been my biggest guinea pig of hey, I feel this. What is this? And then just learning. And she's like, Dad, that's so crazy. I'm like, I know, it's awesome though. At the same time, but then as I'm growing and healing and getting away from, and I see this a lot in the spiritual realm and spiritual bubble, people getting addicted to healing. And it goes back to, yes, which that was me. They get addicted to healing. So they're staying in this perpetual loop of healing, finding something to heal constantly. And I'm that guy. and going, why am I not moving forward, or not having much moving forward? And it's constantly having this chaos loop, constantly, like for me in the last relationship I was in, it was like constantly sharing the things that I'm working through, but I find something to work through, because it's like, look at me. I'm doing the work. Do you love me? Do you love me? Going back to the proving thing.
Yeah.
And so even as I'm moving through, and then finally they kept telling me, you heal by moving forward now. Stop it. You're on the stage. Stop being behind the curtain, peeking through the curtain, going, oh, that's a big crowd. No, get your ass out there. And then they have actually drop kicked me out onto the stage.
Yes.
And so we're healing. And then so this reignite the four pillars of power, the passion, man, because most of us lost that passion, or have moments of that, and that light just kind of fizzles out. The purpose, why the hell am I here? And that can change too. When we get attached to one way, it's like, oh, this is going to be the thing. No, it's taking a step and going down a path and just letting go and allowing it. Just take the steps and allow it to. It's going to evolve over time. Your purpose. Why are you here? Because if you're here, I mean, it's a miracle that any of us are here, right? I mean, it is. We came here. And what I found, that the people I work with, are two things. They're trying to remember who they are. Well, I say create your own identity, but it's not creating. You're just remembering who you were as a kid before, all the power you had and all the things, and showing up as yourself. And I teach you through playfulness, which is the childlike sense of wonder, and getting back to that childlike sense of wonder, and having more fun along the way, to make so you can laugh. I know it's backwards, but laugh through life. And that's like my business name, but it's my whole motto is like, the four pillars of power are helping you have more peace in your life, more freedom in your life inside you, so that you can create it. So when life and chaos are happening, when the world's falling apart, it's on fire, it's a big dumpster fire, which we see that right now, you can sit back with your popcorn and going, I'm good. And when you are triggered by something, you go, oh, what's going on here? But you learn to have fun with it. But I also everything is an experience with me. It's not just coaching, it's not just in energy healing, and it's an experience, and it's unique because of what I can bring with the healing, with the humor, with laughter, and using laughter as a release mechanism, because it doesn't always have to be crying. It always doesn't have to be heavy. And remember, I was getting a Reiki massage done, and she's doing work on me, and I could feel, this is right when my powers really started coming back to me, and she's feeling something. And I remember I asked a question, and she went deep into it, and I could feel it. And I'm like, oh, you're touching me doing the work, and I'm feeling that energy coming back to me. I was like, woo! And then one of her guides said something to me, and I'm like, oh, I don't know her that well. You want me to say that? And they're like, nope. And I'm like, so I said, all right, you know I love you, right?
And you knew you had to speak it.
Yes, because I'm not getting my ass kicked again. And I was like, look, you know I love you, right? Which is key. Is I'm about to say something that may offend you in a minute, or like kick your ass, or whatever. And she's like, yeah. And I go, okay, so what I'm about to say is not coming from me, and I hope you know that when I say it, it's not coming from me, and you'll know where it's coming from. I mean, obviously, she's a spiritual person, and she's like, all right, go for it. Yeah, sure. And I told her, and it was funny because they told me to say, bitch, why you got to make it so hard?
Ah, yes.
And that was the bitch that was like, you want me to call her bitch? And she started laughing, and at that moment I could feel it, and she felt it. It shot up and out. It got transmuted out. And she sighed and like almost like collapsed down, and it was like, thank you for reminding me that healing doesn't have to be so hard. And that's where part of my tagline came from. Healing doesn't have to be so hard. I bring a light.
And I love that, because it doesn't.
It doesn't. I made it hard for myself many times because I got addicted to healing, but I'm also taking these experiences and hey, don't be addicted to healing. Cut that shit out. I'm going to keep bring this to your awareness so that you don't do that, because we tend to do that because we're trying to prove ourselves. So anyway, Reignite. I have a program which is like 50 plus videos, pre-recorded, live guided intuitive energy healing meditations. That's what I've learned through just doing separate, that's how I roll. Like even when I'm doing like when I don't do a lot of now because I'm moving to this group part, but my lives and it's a guided meditation, but it's like I'm doing energy healing, getting messages at the same time because I feel it in my body. I'll get messages from it. Guides will come through. Angels will come through. I mean, it's pretty freaking amazing. So there's those that come through, and as I create, it all just and there's lifetime access to it once you pay for it. And then that's on your own. So there's that piece of that. And then there's what I call the group experience and the full immersion experience, where you get the program, but you also get 6 months of work with me in a group setting, and you get a community of like-minded people who are breaking the cycles, who are remembering their true identity so they can create deeper experiences, bring their power back, create deeper connections in their life and in relationships. I mean, that's the biggest piece, but it's all about owning your power, remembering your identity. And that's coming back home to you. That's what I always say. I'm helping you come back home to you so that you can see, so that you can step out in your power, in this confidence, having the hard conversations, having the healthy relationships, having the life that you want to create, not worrying about what other fucking people think, which is not always easy.
And that's what's beautiful. And we're going to wrap this up because I think you've given us the gist of the program. Like you have the group. You also have where people can do the self-study. So you all need to reach out to Tony because you can do that
now,
right here.
I have
What's that?
I have a challenge that actually starts today. It's actually a free 3-week challenge, which is the beginning pieces of that. It's called Conscious Connection. 3 weeks. You get 20-something videos, 3 guided meditations that go with each theme of the week, plus 4 live intuitive spiritual coaching with me, and it's free. Reach out to me and I can send you the link. I mean, it starts today with like the course material opens up. The first live call is this Thursday. I am having a welcome call this afternoon.
Oh, nice.
Just to introduce, but if someone just wants to get their toe wet to see what I'm all about and see how the powers there's power, there's transformation, but there's also fun and understanding how the hell does that work? Well, let me show you.
Yeah, y'all need to join the challenge with Tony. Reach out to him. This has been another beautiful edition of Heart to Heart, and healing is fun. Y'all remember that. And remember, I thank you, Tony, because you really shared your heart today. Like you shared your story, and I know some things you hadn't spoken before came out, and I think that was a beautiful blessing for this day. Until next time, everybody, you all have a wonderful Monday. Bye.
Thank you for having me as well.
Okay, you're welcome. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.